Greetings, dear viewers, and welcome to my fan commentary on the pilot of the Hasbro era. This season really did get me back into Power Rangers because these last couple of years, while the show is still on Nickelodeon, one of the things I have to amend Hasbro for kicking off this era is that unlike most of the majority of the Neo Saban era seasons, that there are a few notable changes kicking off each episode of their seasons that, unlike Neo Saban, each opening episode of Power Rangers would just have no narrator narrating the premise of the series. But after the first episode, then going into the second episode onward to the finale, there will be the opening narration with about the opening premise of the show, and then our cold opening, and then the theme song, and then the main first act of the episode all the way to the end. But what I did like about the Hasbro era kicking off Beast Morphers with it is, we don't have an opening narrator telling us the premise of the series. But I noticed that in the beginning of a season of Power Rangers, for Hasbro's first series of its era, that they decided to just get straight to the point. With our cold openings being 5 to 6 minutes per cold opening. Then the opening theme song is like shorter now, and then after the opening theme is our commercial break, and then after commercials, then the rest of the episode resumes. But on accounted for, I never really liked the Neo Saban era, but I thought for Beast Morphers, Hasbro had put us on a opening first impression with Beast Morphers, but particularly in this episode, in the beginning of the season, we see Devin and Blaze doing a martial arts fight, very reminiscent and somewhat similar to what we saw from like Jungle Fury with Jared and Casey, but even though Casey was just basically a towel boy, while Jared was up and close to be part of the next Pai Schwa with Lily and Theo. And parts of this does take elements of other, Power Ranger pilot episodes, but entirely different. Even with Beast Morphers' standards, we still have the stuff that we have from Neo Saban, because again, first season had Saban's production team do half of its work, but Hasbro was mainly in charge since they were now getting the franchise, and I'm seeing quite a progression that we didn't get to see from the past with the Neo Saban era, because while Neo Saban, we had all of this carefree, one-dimensional, character acting and writing and stuff. But luckily for Beast Morphers, I'm surprised that when Hasbro announced that they were going to adapt Go Buster and turn that into a Power Ranger season, I'm surprised that Hasbro wants to make Beast Morphers more mature, but it still has to have the edge of it still being a kid show, nevertheless. But I liked how, Beast Morphers decided to give us more raw character dynamics and stuff. Something that had been missing throughout the Neo Saban era, but something that we have seen from the original Saban in Disney eras before. Like, for instance, Devin, he wants to go into Grid Battle Force, but knowing that he wasn't really qualified to be part of it, even though he has a badge from his dad in the limo, knowing that his father is, the mayor of Coral Harbor, which is the name of the city the Beast Morphers / Grid Battle Force Rangers are from. Even for a first episode, and if you have seen my recent, final thoughts video on Beast Morphers when I discussed the characters, I did said how much I don't like Ben and Betty at all, because again, I just felt like, going into the season, I was just worried that Ben and Betty would end up being worse than Victor and Monty and Ninja Steel, but But over the course of the 2 seasons I've watched, seeing these two, I'm just like, can these guys get any worse? Of all the Yellow Rangers, Zoe gets the laundry job for Grid Battle Force. It feels like she could have had a better occupation than that. And it seems like the archetypes of the characters is like you got Devin, who's a martial artist and a gamer, and then you have Zoe, who does laundry for the Grid Battle Force, and then you have Ravi, who's into artistry. What I also have to amend Grid Battle Force is its production design. What I have to amend Hasbro for designing Grid Battle Force and its facility. Half of the hallways do look a lot like the hallways from Darth Vader's the Imperial ship's hallway decks from Star Wars, particularly from New Hope. And I feel like they took some references from Star Wars with the Grid Battle Force hallway corridors, looking very reminiscent to that from Star Wars Episode 4: New Hope. I also like Beast Morphers for unlike most of the majority of the Power Rangers we've had over the last 25 years. They actually delved into past Ranger history from all the 25 seasons, and it just made me wonder. I just wish Beast Morphers was an anniversary series, but Super Ninja Steel in 2018 was an anniversary season of sorts. Only thing anniversary-wise was Dimensions in Danger. But I feel like Beast Morphers should have been the real anniversary, because it was more like celebrating past Ranger history more. And oh yeah, and then also introducing us to Morph X, where we also, what I loved about the season of Power Rangers is that it also delves into the history of the Morphing Grid, and then also more explorations of the Morphing Grid. A lot more than you realized, because most of the majority of the last 25 seasons, when they ever did, they would do certain hints of the Morphing Grid or references to the Morphing Grid and where the Rangers' powers come from in connection to the grid. They only bring up some hints of it. Most of the time they just leave it out and just like act like, well, the Morphing Grid is just ancillary. But luckily I'm happy that Beast Morphers is delving more onto the Morphing Grid or Morph X in this season than I thought I realized. Devin basically in the beginning of this episode took some cue books from some Red Rangers that weren't qualified to do anything in particular. For instance, when Devin was sneaking into Grid Battle Force hoping he could get a job from there, this is kind of like, again, my favorite Red Ranger from a Power Ranger season that you guys know about. That's a huge favorite of mine, by the way, compared to any other season. Like, Devin takes a cue book from Leo, him stowing away into Grid Battle Force, hoping he can get a job with its facility and its and technicians and such, scientists and other covert, combatants. I like the idea of them having a computer virus villain since Venjix from RPM, but spoiler alert, but when we do get to the end of Beast Morphers, we learn that Evox is really Venjix, but reincarnate. While Vengeance was created by Dr. K when, again, if you go back to RPM, when Dr. K created the Vengeance virus as a way to get out of alphabet soup and such. But though when she unleashed the virus in the RPM dimension, she incidentally let that virus, take over the universe, take over the world, and kill millions, and basically knowing to the fact that she created the virus because she needed to get out of alphabet soup. We learn later on the same thing with Nate, but again, this is only the first episode I'm talking about, so we can't delve too much on to that right now, though. Intentionally, they were intending to have Blaze and Roxy be the Red and Yellow Rangers. Unfortunately, something bad goes wrong, because in the first season, Blaze and Roxy's avatars come out, leaving the real Blaze and Roxy, in suspended animation, suspended sleep, while the evil avatars are loose. I also want to note that Beast Morphers' first episode does not use any footage from Go Buster. So this is another season opener, Power Rangers, where no Sentai footage is incorporated. First time since Powers from the Past from Dino Charge. Should have never snuck inside the facility, man. And also, just like Terra Venture and Space Patrol Delta before it and its HQ, that if you have any intruders go inside the facility, you got to put them in their prison room or detention room. I like that. Unlike the entirety of the Neo Saban era, we actually get some realistic relationships between a male ranger and a female ranger or villain. But in the case with Ravi and Roxy, what I did like about this season is how they went with Ravi and Roxy's relationship. Although even when Ravi is dealing with Roxy's evil counterpart, her evil avatar created by Evox, of course. Roxy was supposed to be the Yellow Ranger, and also, it just begs the question, why did Zoe end up being the Yellow Ranger, knowing she was not intended to be yellow? Same go for Devin. I mean, knowing he snuck inside the facility of Grid Battle Force, and knowing he was not even supposed to be the Red Ranger. And knowing Blaze was. Would it have been weird if Zoe and Devin should have been the evil avatars, and Blaze and Roxy should have been the Red and Yellow Rangers in this season? I mean, I like the season for what it is, because I really enjoyed the season, because Beast Morphers got me back in the Power Rangers after 8 years of bad seasons. Well, speaking of elements from the last 8 years, I still don't like the fact that even in this era of Power Rangers, we still have to have cringy Bulk and Skull as comic relief. Like, as if, while Beast Morphers has its own identity, it still has those itches of Neo Saban in the season. But for Hasbro's first, year of producing episodes of Power Rangers all by themselves, but with Saban and Chip, Jutlin and Brian Casadini and them still involved from Saban's production team, knowing Saban produced half of the series, but this was all Hasbro's show, basically. I like how Evox has an original design from what Messiah was from Go Busters. Where in Go Buster, Messiah, which is Evox's counterpart in the Sentai, he was more like an evil computer virus if he was an evil computer virus. I like that they decided to make Evox for season 1 be a computer virus avatar of a CG Viper Snake as a virus, instead of a floating, Keelacon sort of, floating head. In the pilot, when you see Ben and Betty's colors on their, uniforms, knowing in Go Buster, the black and green busters do exist, but knowing there was an opportunity that maybe they could have hinted that Ben and Betty could have been Rangers, but knowing they only have the suits that they could. And now that, once you see Evok's virus spreads into the grid, then he makes Blaze and Roxy become evil, knocking out their good counterparts. And seeing Blaze in season 1, as an evil ranger, I like that they incorporated the Dark Buster suit for him. Again, I wasn't really fond of the Sentai at first, but until when I do get around Go Buster one day. They had to repaint Escape's costume from Go Buster to be green for Roxy, greenish yellowish for Roxy, because while the costume is modified to look yellow looking with tints of green to it, but that's only in an American footage. But when we get to season 2, Roxy has her proper purple color scheme, emulating how Escape was in Go Buster. I really need to take back everything I said about, if Go Buster was adapted in the Power Rangers, I would stop watching. I was just very keen at the time, or actually, no, I was just more like a cynical asshole, not liking the idea of them adapting the Sentai instead of the Sentai's future onward. Hasbro decided to give Go Buster a chance and then adapt that into a Power Ranger season, which I'm glad they turned into a season, because I know many of you out there have been wanting Go Buster to be adapted for so long. At first, well, again, back when Saban was still in charge with, his new era, they were, again, he wasn't sure about how Go Buster would have been adapted and how it would have worked, but they decided to just skip that series in favor of Kyoryoger and turned it into Dino Charge. And I know that left Judlin pissed that, after Super Mega Force, they didn't want to do a Go Buster adaptation. And I know at first it was once a April Fool's joke of Power Rangers Energy Chasers. Yeah, no, it was a stupid April Fool's joke. Unaccounted for, though, when it came to Blaze's character, I did like that his character adapted Escape. Entered. I'm sorry, I'm getting this messed up here. I liked how they adapted Enter's costume and Dark Buster's costume for his evil, suited forms in, within the 2 seasons. I gotta take everything else I said about the Go Buster stuff back, where I wasn't really fond of having leather like Power Ranger costumes and even Sentai suits, and the helmets wouldn't look very Ranger like. It would look something like something Kamen Rider would do, but left unnoticed. But they did look like Sentai and Power Ranger helmets. The suits, on the other hand, pretty much half of the time didn't. And that's why I was a bit cynical about the suits and the helmets from Go Buster looking less, like a traditional Power Ranger and Super Sentai outfit. But now that I've seen these suits being utilized now in Power Rangers, it's different and unique, given that, it's not like most of the majority of the Ranger suit garb that we've known for so long. But then when we go back to Dino Fury, when I get to it, that Dino Fury goes back to the traditional Ranger Sentai look with the spandex. These suits are all leather, and you can tell that they can move in those suits, given the leather fabric and detail on the costumes. This whole entire fight with Blaze and Roxy and the Rangers was, again, all American footage. This was not like in Go Buster, but again, I didn't watch Go Buster in its entirety. Another thing I did like about Beast Morphers over its 2 seasons is the drama. And it's something, and also actual character development that felt more deep and real, because when we had the Neo Saban era, it's like they were so scared to tell dramatic stories and stuff instead of, aping off MMPR zeitgeist nostalgia. But while Beast Morphers still does that, but they were actually being like what I've been seeing from the old Saban and Disney seasons, because this last decade of Power Rangers was just awful. And I mean, feel free to disagree, but the thing is, I actually prefer the direction Hasbro is going with the franchise, with this episode, starting with this season, over what Saban have been doing with their latest, era of seasons of Rangers. And given that this is the kind of stuff I've been expecting, even when I was watching this pilot episode 2 years ago on Daily Motion or so, I was really surprised. I was really worried that Hasbro would make the Beast Morphers another Neo Saban season, but it's under their control, since Hasbro owns the entire franchise now. But when I was watching this episode, and even the next remaining episodes of Beast Morphers season 1, I was worried that they would make it too one-dimensional, too cringy, and too cookie cutter, like for its own good, when it's acting and writing and how it always was. And it also, some of Beast Morphers' underscore music for the season is done by Noam Keneal, but Beast Morphers will be the last Power Ranger series to feature him as a composer. Instead, we get Mark McGuire, who is the new composer going forward, and some other new composers after that, because I got really sick and tired of Noam Keneal's repetition of reusing and remixing Go-Go and Go-Go Power Rangers, and then we have our comic relief ripping off Bulk and Skull. Other than that, Beast Unleashed was a great start for Beast Morphers, and I can tell that they're off to a great start. Just wait until when I watch Dino Fury and how this progresses going forward.